We're live from Sales HQ. I'm Vince Beasy, your host and the founder here at Sales HQ, and my guest today is Nolan Walker. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me, Vince. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to get deeper into your background, but first and most importantly, well, not more importantly, you know, what is Sales HQ? That's probably what you're asking yourself right now. What is this concept of Sales HQ, he says? Well, most people know by now, but it's the first of a kind co-selling space for remote sellers and teams. And what does co-selling mean? You remember the days when you would work on a sales floor next to other salespeople or leadership and so on. You collaborated. I call it peer-to-peer learning. Well, that's the type of environment we're building here at Sales HQ. It's a flex space, so you can rent a desk and you can sit next to other high-performing sellers and learn something from your neighbor.
I love it. Takes me back to the days I first got started pre-COVID.
Right, because when you got started at a company, you typically sat next to a high performer and you watched what they were doing and learn from that person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what y'all are doing here is fantastic. I've been for a few events here now, and it's been great to see sort of the sales community come back out of our rooms and our home offices and remember what it's like to be a salesperson and interact with the community and network.
And that's the other thing too, right? It's not just about a place that I work from some days of the week or whatever it might be. It's also, to your point, like networking. Training sessions, networking sessions, just giving back to the community so we can continue to learn and get better and better at our craft, which is sales, right?
Yeah. Can't be a people person unless you're around people.
So thanks for jumping in on the ad. It's much appreciated. I'll slip you the check at the end of the of the show. But tell us a little bit about what you're up to today. What are you doing today? And we'll go backwards from there.
Yeah. So I'm in an interesting season of my life, and it's an exciting one. I sort of divide my life into three categories right now. First and foremost, I'm a newish dad to a 1-year-old, husband, a father. I'm now the head of sales at Zenlist, which is in the real estate industry here. And big passion of mine has always been mentoring, the younger sales professionals in their career from an interview perspective, resumes, and really how to put yourself out there. So with all of my free time between kid at a startup and doing that, my days go by pretty quickly right now.
Yeah. What do you think keeps you the busiest? Is it
1-year-old and it's not even close? No, if there's one thing I really enjoy is a busy and full schedule. So I've gotten much better at protecting my time, but making sure it's well spent. And it's fun. I compare the startup world to really working with a 1-year-old because they will always keep you on your toes. And you're going to learn something new every day.
That's
without
true.
a doubt.
That is. Every day is different, right? How did you get started in sales?
Oh, yeah. Like many, I had a straight A to B path with sales. So
you were born, you said, I want to be in sales.
I was raised in a sales environment. So I am not originally from North Carolina. I grew up in, kind of upstate central New York. And really didn't have much interaction in the sales community. I, like many teenagers, had no idea what I wanted to do in college and moving forward. So I went to state school even further in New York, and to cut it dry, I was pretty much a nerd. I studied archaeology as my bachelor. So natural progression from
clear path for sales. Clear path.
But what I had always loved and what I found out about myself early on, both from a professional, academic, and just lifestyle, is I've always been fascinated by other people. And I've wanted to get to know them. I wanted to understand what their goals are, what the result is. And as I moved away from archaeology as a viable career path in modern day, I started to realize that, from some of the professional work I'd done, from selling, through college, through my summer jobs, just, under the table, beer sales at a brewery, from grocery sales and marketing. I knew that was going to be a logical progression for me. I loved working with people. I loved being able to not sit across the table from somebody, but really to move to their side, understand who they were, what they were buying. Then the question was, where do I find a job in upstate New York, which wasn't exactly, the most flush market at the time, and this would have been about 10 years ago. So having graduated from Plattsburgh, New York, it was 30 degrees below zero with 2 feet of snow. So I picked North Carolina on a map and decided that was where I was going to start I figured it was nice. I could golf in the winter, and I didn't have to deal with snow nearly as much as I did.
Not at all.
Happening to, of course, move about a week before the snow apocalypse came that everybody remembers. So that was
What was that, 2 inches?
Yeah, I'm sorry I brought that to everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess,
So you seriously went to a map, looked at the state of North Carolina, and then just said Raleigh area? And
yeah, if I
did you know anything about?
no, so
Did you know anybody?
nope,
What's wrong with you?
I know. Fortune favors the bold, but
Yes.
I do. I look back, and my parents have always encouraged us to grow and challenge ourselves. So I'm the youngest of brothers, and
How many?
moved, two brothers.
Okay.
So one's a professional chef, the other moved around the world to Australia.
Okay.
So
It's in your
mine was a
blood.
little bit easier. I stuck on the East Coast, so the parents were a little bit more comfortable. But I essentially started to apply online through job boards, Indeed and Monster back then, and those were the newer things. So reached out to a company in the human capital management and payroll world called ADP, which most sellers get their start at one of those type of companies, and had an interview with the VP of sales down here in Raleigh, and was hoping they would fly me down for the final interview process, but paid my own way, cashed out everything in my bank account to book a ticket down here, and ran through the process.
Wait, they didn't pay for your ticket to fly down here?
No.
Because they said the job's here. So
the job's here, and we have applicants that are looking to, come in from downtown Raleigh, so we can't pay for your ticket. So
bad on you, ADP.
no, and it turned out to be, it was the best thing for me, because how else can you stand out and interview for an entry-level sales job but fly across the country to interview for it?
Yeah,
so,
shows how bad you want it, right?
Went down there, was offered the position, and 5 weeks later moved down to North Carolina, and jumped right into the thick of it. And without knowing the difference between Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham, was thrown about as east into North Carolina as I could be, into the good old boy country area. So imagine a 22-year-old Yankee from upstate New York working in Roanoke Rapids, Nashville, Elizabeth City, all the way down 64 up 95. And I jumped into it. It was a full cycle sales, which I think is the best way to get started. I had to go find all of my business. So
it was all door to door. You were going to offices,
Yep. Door to door, offices, small business sales primarily. And when I first got started, I was so bad.
Yep.
I forgot everything I knew about myself. I tried to be, Mr. Wall Street. I wore a JCPenney suit in, country North Carolina. And people could see right through that I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being who I should be.
And you were wearing cheap suits. And they saw
cheap
that.
Suits. They could tell, that was an off-the-rack suit for sure.
Isn't it something that I similar to you, my first sales job was going into small businesses and trying to find the owner. And that face-to-face, like there's nothing more nerve-wracking than walking into someone's door who didn't ask you to come in, and then asking to meet the person who makes the decisions about whatever it is. Like, that's hard.
Yeah, it's,
face-to-face rejection is one thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you can normally shrug off something on the phone call, but the face-to-face always has a special place in my heart. But I think it's something that, really sticks with you as an early career salesperson. Is you get comfortable in being uncomfortable very quickly. And from there, you can figure out what you need to work on, who you really are as an authentic salesperson. And for me, my big turning point was, I still remember it 10 years later, the first real deal I closed there was to a tobacco farmer up in Roanoke Rapids. And if I was inauthentic, if I was wearing a suit, they were going to walk away, because the product I had sold, their brother and their uncle and their family members had been doing the payroll for them for decades. So why would they ever want to pay, a company from New Jersey a bunch of money every year to do it? And I realized, I'd been talking to people my whole life. I threw the suit jacket in, I crumpled up the sleeves, rolled them up, and I just had an honest conversation to understand who they were, what they were looking for. And from there, everything flowed. I closed that massive deal. I was able to hit my ramp number very early on and quickly. And then from there, just started to fall in love with getting better at sales, understanding what I had to do, and really starting to figure out who I was as a salesperson.
ADP also provides a pretty good sales training program, no?
They do, yeah. Every Tuesday morning at 7:30 in the morning, they'd have all the new hires, and the associate district managers was the title, meet for what we called training, to walk through the skills, how to go through that. So it gave me a good foundation professionally. and then, all the avenue in the world to really expand, and help me identify quickly that, ADP is a massive Fortune 100 company. But when you're working in small communities or smaller towns, they don't know what ADP is. Maybe you get lucky and they think they're setting an appointment for ADP security. But more often than not, it was clean slate, blank space, which that is what caught my interest as a seller, and really where I figured out what my true skill set was as a seller was helping products go to market, helping build territory from really nothing into something. And that helped me really start to plan and be strategic in the steps in my sales career, which has led me now, 10 years later, to being the head of sales at Zenlist.
Back to when you first started there, what kind of guidance did they give you in regards to your territory and accounts, businesses you should go after?
Good luck. No. What they really did was, this was a territory that was typically hard to staff, because if I needed to go to every market that I serviced, it would take me 26 hours to drive to. So I worked with an awesome VP, an awesome manager at the time, who really kept me interested in sales. I got here, I knew nobody, I had no social network, and I was living in a world of rejection like most salespeople. So 5 weeks in, I was sitting in a small 1-bedroom apartment off of Capitol Boulevard. As I said, I didn't know Raleigh. Going, was this really the right choice for me? And I had great management who helped inform my decision to work with people and to help manage. So they gave me structure on, this is what you need to do. These are the people you need to target. And you're very outgoing. You're likable. Bring that into your process.
Yeah.
So get creative in prospecting. I would sit there and make calls with the best of them, but for the most part, I'm calling into landlines. So I needed to be the mayor of that small town. I needed to go there. People needed to know me. They needed to trust me, most importantly of all. And they needed to understand where I was coming from, that yes, my job is to hit a number, but ultimately what this product would be able to provide would be able to help you get to that goal, or help your employees get to that goal.
And this is full cycle sales.
Full cycle. So from cold call, from identifying the account, cold call to meeting to contract.
It's the best way to learn. I mean, it's the best.
I have nothing but the utmost respect for the SDR and the BDR position. I think it is the hardest job you can have in sales. I wish there was a clearer, quicker, and cleaner path for a lot of SDRs to get closing experience, because I think it's the best way to understand who you are as a salesperson and to really build your skill set.
I'm still a firm believer that some companies selling some products should do full cycle sales. And I agree that some cases it just doesn't scale well.
Yeah.
But gosh, there's nothing better than having one person at that company speak to the client, as opposed to getting passed around to multiple people. I think it's not a good customer experience, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we always think about. What is our sales process? But it has to map back to the customer process. So hopefully, I've heard some companies starting to move back to a full cycle sale model. So I just think it's a way better customer experience.
For sure. And I think it's easy for us to sort of get lost in the customer life cycle.
Yeah.
And, we see all the posts on LinkedIn about team selling, passing off. And I think there are complex sales that absolutely require that. But put yourself in the customer's shoes. If you're just trying to buy something on Amazon, you want to be tossed to 4 different people before you can purchase that product. Like, no, you want somebody that you can call, and then a number that you can reach out to support for the most part.
So how many years did you stay at ADP?
So I was at ADP for just under 5 years. I got to a point where, like most people in ADP, the path was moving into sales management or staying in the role I was at. And one thing I learned very quickly about myself is that forward momentum and progress for me is very important. I have a ritual every new year where I look at what I was doing the year before. And if I can't tell a difference in Nolan Walker a year ago to where Nolan Walker is today, something's gone wrong. So unfortunately, I got to that point at ADP where I was doing well, I was hitting my number, but ultimately, some of my best years at ADP, if somebody had sneezed and deleted my number, it's a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 100 company. Yeah. What impact was I really going to make if that number, was plus or minus? And to me, it made a lot, but opened my eyes then to starting to go into more of the startup, the small business avenue. So I pivoted into another human capital management company that was much, much, much smaller in scale out of Louisiana. Was able to stay in Raleigh, which was great for me, but they wanted somebody to launch the North Carolina market.
Mhm.
And that was really what I stepped into, that first real scale and startup lifestyle for me.
What was it called?
NetChecks.
That's right.
So they're an awesome company. They really tailor their product a lot more customizable. So it also opened me up to go from SMB into the commercial and enterprise deal. So helped me really sharpen my skills as a seller, going from
Mhm.
small to mid-sized businesses to really understanding that complex sale, budget cycles, building out a product from scratch in terms of the integrations they would need.
Same industry though, right?
Same industry.
Yep.
So there was some familiarity. And I was there for about a year before, like many people, and I'm sure many people listening, an industry called cybersecurity sales started to creep up. And I felt the call and the pull from that. And actually worked with a fantastic recruiter who pops in here every so often,
Who?
Lee.
Oh yeah, Lee
And
Whitley. Yeah.
Worked and jumped over into the cybersecurity industry from the payroll world. And I made that choice for a couple of reasons. And payroll is an awesome industry. There's a lot that you can do. There's a lot of career progression, movement. And for me, as I'd mentioned, progress was important for me. From a technology perspective, I didn't see a path for more innovation and product. You know, you can only pay people so fast,
Yeah.
so quickly, and there's a large presence of incumbents there. So cybersecurity was new to me, knew nothing about the
What year is
industry.
this that you went into cyber?
Right before COVID.
Oh,
so
boy.
2019. So went through there about, like many people, worked out of an office, loved the sales floor, was able to make cold calls next to people again.
What's the name of this company?
BitSite.
Okay.
So had a satellite office in Raleigh, primarily based out of Boston. So got to be able to work and learn the industry, was able to make cold calls, meetings, sitting this far away from somebody. So back in that environment that
Yep.
I loved and thrived in. And then like everybody, the whole world, we shut down March 2020. We moved in, back home. And from there, a fun collaborative environment became Slack happy hours. So that became a difficult world to navigate,
Yeah.
where the product was very much a nice to have in some CIOs and CTOs mindsets. And with budget freezing, as we didn't know if the world was starting or ending, it became sort of a, feast or famine type environment.
Yeah.
So luckily at that time, I knew I also had that.
What kind of role was it, by the way?
It was commercial to enterprise, essentially. We focused on pretty large companies. I was over the Southeast and parts of the Caribbean. So was able to work and network with a lot of people in the industry before we all shut down, and focused really on the, verticals that were primed for, disruption and
Yeah.
cyber, like education, manufacturing, places like that.
Cool. So how'd you do there going through COVID?
I did well. Unfortunately, like many people, you have to deal with what you can. You can do a great job in the sales process, and it may just stall out completely.
Mhm.
And learning what I learned about enterprise, being in a role like that, all of a sudden, it'd be great. This sounds awesome. Our budget for 2026 will be open in 3 years. So submit an RFP and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
So I think that was a harsh reality for a lot of my peers and a lot of people in the industry. And ultimately, BitSite made, at the time, a decision to remove a lot of people from that division. So I found myself furloughed going into the holidays in 2021. And ultimately, that was, at the moment, a pretty tough decision. I was planning to propose to my now wife at the time. So got to buy a ring from the jeweler without a job. So paid in cash. Luckily, that was an easy one to get the approval there. But
Paid in cash, would you get a deal? Fall off a truck?
yeah, the Turnpike special.
Yeah, there you go.
So luckily for me, I always believe in networking. I was constantly keeping up with people, with former managers, with former colleagues, and in a great twist of fate. And I think luck is when preparation and skill meet. Somebody had reached out for a company in the real estate space called Compass.
Mhm.
They were looking to expand and scale their market from being pretty successful in New York City and on the West Coast to launching in North Carolina, because our real estate market is fantastic. And they wanted somebody who had sales experience, scaling experience, and product experience to join. And throughout a couple calls, I was connected through just a referral saying we should reach out to Nolan Walker. Got a call, and ultimately I thought they had the wrong number because I knew nothing about real estate. I was not an agent. but went through the interview process, fell in love with the company, the culture, the product, and the role itself, and was at Compass for a number of years, helping them launch, scale, hire, and grow that presence to now, at the time I left, about 3 years into that role, they were the #1 brokerage in Charlotte, #1 brokerage in Chapel Hill, and just behind a very legacy brokerage that has been here forever in terms of production, right behind that.
So you weren't selling real estate. What were you selling at Compass?
So I was selling their technology platform. So real estate as an industry is one of the last sort of Wild West industries, I like to call them. It's healthcare, real estate, and now AI as that's coming out. And technology and real estate for the longest time was taking the MLS, which is where everybody's listings are and all of your homes for sale, from paper to the internet. And that was the biggest technological advancement for a very long time. And a lot of people in that era where it was much easier to get VC money or capital to invest, that's where a lot of money went into. That's where you saw Zillow come into play, Open Door, Redfin, a lot of these big consumer portals that most of us think about as real estate. I search for a house on Zillow. Compass came in and received a large investment from multiple firms to disrupt real estate in the sense of providing agents with technology to streamline their process. Because up until really that point, what they had pieced together, as a startup yourself, was largely third-party tools that you try to find that maybe they work together, maybe they don't. So Compass was coming with a very innovative platform. So my role there was to sell the vision, the platform, and the story to large brokerages, to franchises, and bring them underneath the umbrella at Compass.
So you would speak to real estate agents, or I should say realtors or brokers, right? And they would move from their current outfit to Compass?
That would be sort of the
Is it exclusive relationship or no?
To an exclusive relationship. That would be sort of on the small scale of the cycle. Where North Carolina is unique is there's a very difficult test to become an agent for sure, but a lower barrier to entry to start your own brokerage. So one of the advantages of joining a larger organization is scale and power of purchase. So these smaller entities here in North Carolina didn't have the avenue to compete against these large players like Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, all names that we're probably familiar with. But they wanted to keep their identity, which was important to them. So we essentially became a platform for them to help scale their business, help more clients. So while we would work with individual agents, a big portion of what my day-to-day was helping to identify the larger brokerages with multiple members and bringing the entirety over underneath that umbrella. So a complex sale, usually a large cycle, a lot of decision makers and players involved, and honestly, a very emotional sale. It brought
you joined at an interesting time, though.
I did.
Well, real estate market skyrocketed once COVID hit because everybody needed a bigger house with an office.
Yes.
So it must have been really interesting how fast the growth was.
It was. I joined a few months before they actually went public in their IPO. So I was able to join from the pre-NASDAQ Compass era. And as to your point, I joined in 2021, which was really the height of the real estate market. And then about June 2022 happened where we all know rates started to increase and pretty quick drop down in terms of transaction pricing, because a lot of people have to buy a house using a mortgage, and when the rates are high and the monthly month to month is too much to afford, transactions slow down. So we actually saw in Raleigh business started to increase for us, believe it or not, because
the market,
in fear like that, when you don't know what's going to happen, a lot of times people will navigate towards those institutions that have a pretty strong foundation. So we actually had a lot of people looking to join Compass because they wanted that security. They wanted a larger organization that they trusted to be able to navigate this hard times. And now, as you can see, they've had a great resurgence. They've had a large presence and continue to grow in their followings here and across the country.
Yeah, I certainly see their yard signs a lot. Even that's not a great market right now, but this area in general, it's doing better than most, I'd imagine. So you got the real estate bug.
Yeah.
How did you get the Zenlist?
Zenlist. So I got the real estate bug. I love the industry. As a sales professional, there's this new industry called prop tech, which has really started to become a new word that's coming across, the industry here. It's not the real estate sales, it's prop tech. So you're seeing a lot of startups happen in this business. And for me as a salesperson, that's very exciting because it means there's a lot of blank space, a lot of white space, and a lot of ability to scale, which for me, as I said, growing a business, growing and scaling a platform is what I love to do. And Zenlist actually found me through some of the work I've done, the networks I've made. And at the time, wasn't really looking to leave what I'd been doing at Compass, but ultimately found out that, it got to a point where it was steadfast. There were multiple physical offices opened up. There was a huge presence. I had accomplished what I felt I wanted to do at that stage of my professional career. And earlier in my life cycle, I might have been a little bit averse to becoming into that sales leadership.
Yep.
I'm now at a stage in my career where I love to mentor, I love to help, and I love to scale. And everything Zenlist has offered from a product perspective, a platform, and a challenge was exactly what I was looking for. So I joined Zenlist in July of 2023. They were primarily a product-led organization with a great presence in certain markets. And they wanted an experienced enterprise sales professional to help lead, build the structure of the sales organization, build the procedures, the policies, and help them open up new markets so they could drive additional revenue. So it's the smallest company I've worked for, but it's one of the most passionate, and just every hire we have is meant for that role.
So what do you guys sell?
So we exist in this middle ground. It's funny because you would think this is something that's here, but I'd mentioned Zillow earlier and I'd mentioned the MLS. Agents need the MLS. Most consumers live on Zillow. But ultimately what the client wants, with the client being somebody buying a house, is to feel supported, to be connected to their agent, and to find the most accurate information. And that's what Zenlist does. We have a unique way of working with local organizations and local associations in the real estate world to get that accurate data. And we have an application that clients and agents can use that blows the competition out of the water. So if I'm somebody looking for a new house, I want to be able to find a property quicker than I can using Zillow. And I don't want to be advertised by every agent in the world. I want to be connected to the person that I've known for a long time, that I bought my last house with. And that's where our product lives, in that middle ground.
So consumers will use Zenlist?
Yes. So consumers, in some of our markets prefer to use Zenlist in most cases than Zillow because they're able to see inventory very quickly. They're able to get connected directly to their agent, because real estate, for us, we think of it as property, but where we're seeing the trend is it's data. From an agent, the data is their clients, their customers, their contacts, their CRM. For MLSs, for associations, the data is the listing.
Yeah.
And who has access to the data the fastest is going to be the company that can position themselves to grow fast, quickly, and accurately. So clients are able to work directly with an agent. It's a private invite, a private collaboration. You could have multiple people on our platform at once. So investors, spouses, partners, individuals, everybody can be on one platform, and agents love it because they can manage their book of business and really focus on the nurturing side of the relationship. There's plenty of solutions for them to generate business and leads, but there's not many solutions that can help foster that relationship and nurture that over the entire life cycle.
Very cool. How's business?
It's good. We're in the process of working on expanding across the country. So my day is really connecting across the board, finding and identifying the right TAMs, the right ICPs, and the right areas that we can really expand and grow. Because one thing, as it's starting to open up, we want to be able to capitalize on the changes with rates being cut, but we want to be able to focus on growing, bringing on the right talent, and building out the sales force in the way that's going to position us to ride this wave and really scale the product.
So what's your biggest challenge as a sales leader today?
Biggest challenge for us, I would say, and for me myself, is finding the right approach. And what I mean by that is, as I said, there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of companies that are competing for the same level of bandwidth, the same attention. We could be like every company, and we could get on a mass email campaign. We could hire a lot of SDRs, BDRs to cold call and reach out. But with our product being so focused on the relationship, the enterprise, and real estate being a business of relationship, we also need to be able to be in multiple places at once, at trade shows, at events, at local groups. So for us, if we could clone our team, that would be the greatest thing in the world. But where we're at right now is working with our organization to identify the right messaging, the right outbound strategies, creating the right inbound strategies to pull in leads, as opposed to all of us having to go out and hunt and bringing the team on to hunt business. That's been our big priority and focus here.
Well, cool. I wish you the best with that.
I appreciate that.
A lot of GTM going on, figuring out. That's the fun thing about being at a startup, right?
Yeah.
It's like every day is different,
Yep.
trying to figure it and get better and better and better.
You wake up and it's a new challenge to deal with.
So how big's the team?
So we're a team of just under 20.
Okay. And VC backed?
Yes, early stage VC backed. We wanted to move into, that push for profitability as quick as we could.
How are you finding the hiring process? Meaning you hiring folks. What is that like? What's the market like?
Yeah, I think as we can all sort of empathize, it's a tough market out there. There have been a lot of layoffs, a lot of cuts, a lot of industries changing. And as a result, there's a lot of qualified sellers out there that you're competing as a company for those sellers as well. And there might be benefit packages a large organization can offer that a small startup can. But for us, it's just as important to find the perfect candidate in that sense, because it's much more costly as a startup to find the wrong person. So for me, I have always gravitated towards somebody that invites me into their sales process during the interview. So from people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and now I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of LinkedIn messages from saying that.
Nolan Walker, hit him up.
But people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, people asking about what the product is, and then proving to me that you're a seller, whether it's for setting appointments, whether it's for closing business. Invite me into that sales process. I want to be able to see what you
So you're not restricting to just people that come from the real estate industry or so on.
No, that's the thing. I mean, in good faith, I didn't come from the real estate industry directly. I learned it, and I've lived by a mantra: identify your skill set and learn your industry. And I think as career sales professionals, you can apply that into most situations. Know who you are as a sales professional. We can teach the rest.
Yeah,
we can teach the industry. We can teach the A's, B's, and C's. If there's a qualified person who would be a great fit for the team, but doesn't know the difference between buying and selling a house, that's easy. We can teach that in an afternoon.
I'm glad you're open-minded about that, because there's a lot of great salespeople out there, and I know there's a lot of companies that are very defined in their criteria for hiring, and they stick to it regardless. And a lot of people sending in applications, if they don't hit that criteria, that they don't even get into the process, which is a shame,
I can understand it, but I think you miss out on great opportunities and talent.
It just depends where I guess you are as a company. You're an early stage company, to your point. Like you're like hand selecting versus,
Exactly. We can take risks because we're a small jet ski in a big ocean. We can turn left, we can turn right very quickly. So I can empathize with other leaders about it being a hard profile to hire for as well.
So you already shared at the top a lot of interesting things. You have a 1-year-old, recently was married not that long ago, switched jobs not that long ago. But last question for you. What's something that most people don't know about Nolan that's interesting?
Ooh. Well, I did say I was a nerd in school, and this is interesting. I don't think a lot of people know about it, at least down here. I'm actually a classically trained and professional cellist. So that big old wooden instrument, I spent my whole life from a very young age learning how to play. Have played in orchestras, led orchestras, trios, ensembles, all types of groups. So that's my fun party trick that I like to bring out. And you have one lying around here, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's one in the back. I'll get it in a minute. Interesting fact, though. Numerous guests we've had on this podcast come from a musical background.
Really?
4 or 5 people.
Interesting.
One was in a rock band. One was a singer. What other instruments did we have? Pianist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must be something in the water for music to go into
I
sales.
just think it's discipline.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't just wake up one day and you're playing the cello. You have to take lessons. You have to continue. Right? I mean, it's the same thing as sales. You don't wake up just being great at sales. You have to. So I think there's a correlation for that.
Practice.
Yeah.
Practice.
Athletics or an instrument. I think there's a path for salespeople. So, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Awesome.
This is
Thanks
great.
for having me. This was a blast. I appreciate it, and can't wait to be at more of these events and networking with our people. If you're looking, I'll give you the plug. This is definitely a place to jump back into.
It's also a place for Nolan, too.
Yeah, I love it. You'll see me more.
All right. Thanks, Nolan. Until next time, Sales HQ.